All right, everyone, welcome back. Today's episode is going to be a special one because we have Isaac here from the podcast Hidden in the Shadows. Isaac, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Isaac has been doing this for several years now, and he has quite the history with the paranormal. So Isaac, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your story and what's kind of brought you to this place.
Well, something I've always come to incline to say is like, usually I say always for your listeners, and then mostly anyone I talk to. Before I tell you my story, it is one thing that you have to grasp is that I can almost guarantee you've never heard about someone like me before, my story in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that to be like, oh my gosh, he thinks of himself so highly. No, it's just I spent years researching and looking through histories of different cultures, different religions, different legends throughout our time, and still have come up short. So, if someone out there knows more, I'd like to talk to that person. But this is why I want to share my story, not only for the fact of finding information, but because I know it can help other people.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to that, I have been surrounded by the paranormal ever since I was a kid. The ranch that I grew up on in Texas, North San Antonio, it's littered with paranormal stuff that's happening there. And from the events I usually tell people about it, and the experience is not just my own and other people who have been there. From when I've told the stories about it, people said, wow, that almost sounds like a rival Skinwalker Ranch. The infamous Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. But that's where all my paranormal experiences ever happened to me. And then as I moved out and I moved to San Antonio, granted, I had a little bit here and there, but not as much was there. And then, of course, I met my wife, my co-host on the show, Megan. And she, on her own right, is a very talented psychic medium. Mm-hmm. So since she was a child, or a baby, actually, she's been talking to ghosts. And every house that she's ever lived in has been haunted. So, of course, when we first met, the house that she lived in was haunted. And she was afraid in the beginning that this would scare me away. But in truth, I was intrigued. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, you're dating the right guy. I'm into this stuff. So, our early days of us being in a relationship, I was grabbed, I was scratched, I saw like a doorknob rattle, I heard her own voice, I heard my voice called. Like anything paranormal you can think of happened in the beginning. And then, of course, we moved to another house together, and that had its own, hour to 2 hour story. So just stuff that happened there particularly. Mm. And then we started the podcast. Is out of the pandemic, like most people did, out of 2020, because no one really had anything to do. So most people started podcasts. Granted, a lot of them didn't survive after the pandemic was over. But no, we started, and I kind of wanted to start a podcast in particular because I was a fan of podcasts. And this is when podcasts started getting popular. Now it's like where they are now. So we started a podcast called Not Your Average Conversation, NYAC. Doesn't exist anymore. It was basically a podcast, me and her talking about everything and anything. And we found out that every time we talked about paranormal stuff, those episodes did a lot better. So we decided to drop NYAC altogether and strictly do a paranormal podcast. We call it Hidden in the Shadows. Mm-hmm. And then because between the two of us, we have enough paranormal experiences to fill up several novels of writings, just from our lives separately and together. But things really didn't take off into the extremely strange until September of 2020.
Okay.
It was in September of 2020 where my ability awoken or came to me, however you want to look at it. But what happened is that I gained the ability to not only feel, control, and manipulate the other side. Mm-hmm. And it started with my hands. And what I describe it as that when your hands go to sleep, that tingling sensation, right? And it starts in the center of my palm and spreads out through my fingertips. The closer or the stronger the entity is. So off the bat, I already technically became like a natural EMF detector, able to know where something's around.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a psychic or medium. I can't hear or see them any more than anyone else can, but I can feel, knowing where they are. It's like my ability resides in my physical body, as most psychic and mediums use their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the difference between me and psychic mediums is that psychics and mediums can almost pick up signal wirelessly. I have to, physically plug in. So I'm like hardline. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that was just the beginning of it.
Yeah.
An event happened on Halloween of that same year on Halloween, actually. And I was outside with my son, and we weren't trick-or-treating that year, obviously. And I think we were just hanging out at night, and I was barbecuing or something, and we were outside, me and my son was 5 at the time. Yeah. And he noticed something scary, like something scared him in the shadows of the backyard. And I see something run past, blocking the light, thinking someone was in the backyard. So I'm looking around with my flashlight, my phone, and all of a sudden my right hand starts charging. And this is where I learned, and also through practice, and of course having Megan able to see and know what stuff's around, where I learned to differentiate which hand means which. So when my left hand charges, it's a human spirit, something on the positive side.
Okay.
When my right hand charges, is something evil, something on the negative side of the spectrum of the paranormal.
Okay.
And something was in the backyard, and it was scaring him. And then I felt out my right hand, and almost instinctually, I tried to grab the space that was there. And when I did that, I felt an electric charge shoot my entire arm all the way up into my head. And I could feel myself pulling whatever this was, like closer to me, like I was sucking it up like a vacuum. And I let go because I didn't know what I was doing. But that was, and always will be, the first and last time anything's ever gotten away from me. It was an automatic instinctual pull. And we soon joined a paranormal team after that. And joining a paranormal team actually helped focus, strengthen, and sharpen my ability to what it is now, paranormal investigating specifically. But I joined several teams over that time that kind of just disbanded from one team, created another, and disbanded and created another. But there was an older guy on the team, older, I guess he was in his 40s, older than me anyway, but who was well seasoned to the paranormal game. And he became kind of my mentor, just because he was more in tune to the psychic world more so than anyone I've ever met. But he didn't know anything about my ability. He even heard anything about it. So he helped me in the idea of the spiritual side of everything. Meditating, getting in touch with my spirit guides, all that stuff. Learning to see the universe from a different kind of perspective, a spiritual side. And that helped me focus and was able to see that it wasn't a vacuum that I was pulling. When I was able to see through my third eye, it's was, you imagine, strings of energy leaving each one of my fingertips, firing and wrapping around an entity like a boa constrictor, condensing and pulling the entity towards me until the energy is condensed to about the size of a ball. And in the early days, I would pull that energy into myself, and I would filter it like a natural filtration system, like my body acted like that. And then when the energy would leave me after being reversed to like neutral energy, it would chill around my spine, like when you're cold, and it would leave me in a breath. And that practice I kept doing, but that started taking a toll on me. It actually started turning the hair on the right side of my head and my beard, gray. Only the right side, not, just like little specks and little stuff like that. And then my wife started noticing, she goes, "Why is it only your right side?" And we figured out it's because of what I was doing. And she said, "You gotta find a new way of doing this. It's taking a toll on you physically." So, and of course, kismet fashion, or it just by fate, I guess. Mike, my mentor, had a dream of a symbol. He didn't know what the symbol was. And he drew it and he posted it in our group chat of the paranormal team we were part of at the time. And luckily, we're a member on the team who was Jewish. And he automatically recognized that symbol as a King Solomon's symbol that was on King Solomon's ring. I don't know how much you know about King Solomon.
I mean, not a ton, but I'm familiar.
Well, for people who don't know.
Yeah.
The specific about King Solomon's ring is that there's a story told in all three Abrahamic faiths
Right.
that King Solomon had a ring given to him by Archangel Michael, and he was bestowed wisdom, of course, by God and stuff like that. Um, that ring, using somatic magic, was able to imprison 72 demons into that ring. That's what gave me the idea. So I bought a replica King Solomon ring. Just nothing special, just steel and silver. With the idea in mind, because if there's the only person in history who was doing did something similar to myself, and you use this, maybe I'll use it too. So I bought it. I bought it for the size of my pinky, so I wore it and had it on my finger, and I did a pull. And when I had the entity in my hand, with not forced it in myself, but simply closing my fists and saying the first thing that came to my mind, into the ring. When I said that, the energy left. And I didn't filter it, but it went somewhere. I kept doing this over and over again. And then Megan, like I said, she can hear everything. She started hearing screaming and yelling and swearing coming from the ring as if it was like a prison, like inmates all yelling at the same time. So she asked me, well, what the hell's going on? What is that? And I told her what I was doing. And she like channeled into the ring, and she saw what it looked like to her. It looked like a holding cell with all these Dementor-looking entities flying and hitting the walls. Yeah, hitting the walls, unable to leave, and like a prison. And that's what the ring became. It became a prison for every dark entity I have encountered over the last 4 years. Okay. Now, I have lost count of how many human dark entities I have taken in my time, but I have kept count of how many demons I have taken, because something I found out while doing this is that, and I say this not to be cocky or egotistical in any way. I say this as a matter of fact. Nothing has been able to stop me. Nothing. Everything I have come across, every entity, regardless of how old, powerful, whatever it is, has all fallen the exact same every single time. Some are a little more difficult than others, but the same thing. It always happens. And that's why my current count is 146 confirmed demons in that ring.
Wow.
And because, well, that, also all the investigations I've done, and also the 41 home cases that I've done. 32 or so, I believe, involved demons. The rest were just dark entities. So a lot of oppression cases that I've helped out with.
Sure.
And the fact that I've learned that demons always roll in threes. There's a master and two servants. So, of course, that numbers ranked up pretty fast after all those cases. And plus, after the fights I have picked with dark entities, they have some come to our home looking for a fight. So, 4 years, 146 demons. Yeah. Plus a plethora of other kinds of dark entities, from witches, from skinwalkers, from different entities, from different kinds of pantheons that I didn't think were even existed, but I've seen them. And that's the thing. One of the other aspects of my ability that I learned is that touch, me connecting to a person, helped out in the beginning. Now I don't have to. But if I were to take your right hand and hold it in mine, I would be able to see into your mind forest. And I call it a mind forest because it's a subconscious part of your mind where all your negative emotions dwell, all your trauma, all your hatred, everything you might have been regretful for, subconsciously or consciously, is all buried there. And it always depicts itself as a forest. And everybody's mind forest is different. From the foliage, the time of day, from the color of the moon, from how dense or how undense the trees are, and how vast the space is. Everyone's is different. I've seen endless amount of mind forest. I have probably cleared more minds than anything else. Is people, requested me to do that for them. But what I learned about the mind forest is that if I pull the dark energy out of your head, essentially, put it in the ring, your main spirit guide comes forward. And I've talked to a kaleidoscope of different spirit guides, from a native Samoan, from soldiers, from Vikingers, from gunslingers, from dancers, from a doctor who was on the Oregon Trail, from a skater kid who died in 2000. It's like everyone has a different main spirit guide for whatever purpose. The only thing I've come to conclusion with that is that if you have a fighter or a warrior or someone for combat as your main spirit guide, you're going to be met with a lot of conflict in life.
Okay.
That goes hand in hand. But that ability to go into someone's mind force allowed me to go into the ring, and I got to saw what it looks like in there. And what it looks like in there is, if you can imagine a forest after a nuclear blast, all the trees are black and ash and burnt, no foliage.
Mm-hmm.
The sky is overcast. The ground is covered in dirt and ash. And everything in there is different kind of levels of shadow figure looking entities. Some are big, some are small, some have horns. They're all yelling and screaming. The best way I can describe how it sounds like, if you're a Slipknot fan at all, I was just listening to the opening track of the Iowa album by Slipknot. Song's called 515. That times 100 and you get a good idea what it sounds like. It is you want to tell people, and that I was going to scare the shit out of a lot of people just from hearing that. But that was where I gained, and I started learning, I started seeing, I started gaining and getting contact with my spirit guides and learning more and more. And then my ability, of course, consistently evolves to match and catch up to whatever challenge I've come along with. Like Tony Stark, I'm always learning. 41 home cases, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 2 I've done in person.
Okay.
I can't remote view. I can't astral project.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I pull things from remote locations that I'm across the planet on is my tendrils, strings, can go through the phone, the camera, like how we're talking now, from my space into yours, reach into your place, grab whatever's there, pull it from where you are, through the phone into my space, and then, of course, I throw it into the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I always equated it to the idea of folding fourth dimensional space. My phone is where it is. Yours is where it is, like other side of the country. But when I pull, they're back to back. Mm-hmm. So I'm reaching through both, grabbing what's there, and then pulling through the other. And then, of course, I have it in. I take it there. That's how I was able to pull from not just our country, but Canada, Mexico, Australia, Portugal, Philippines, India, England, I think where else? Hawaii and the Belize. I have pulled from almost not the entire world, but different places. And because I can do that, I can pull from that. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, I can help.
Nice.
And that has been my mission, my purpose now, because with ability like mine, unmatched by anything out there, unstoppable in every single way for dark entities, and able to do it anywhere. And with a wife who's a very talented remote viewer, so she can tell me exactly where something is. Mm-hmm. We together, I mean, the missus are like, people said, like a power couple. Like we are very dangerous to dark entities. Right. And that's why we have been doing what we have been doing, is getting stronger with our abilities, learning everything we can, getting contact with different entities, and learning as much as we can from our own spirit guides. Mm-hmm. And that has been my purpose as of now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when all this started, what do you think started it? Was there like a certain experience more so than another that kind of sparked all this? Or do you think that, I mean, and how did it change your perception of the paranormal? Did it solidify things in a certain way, or tell us a little bit about that?
It made me understand more.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It made me question a lot more.
Okay.
Right. Seek more information. Mm-hmm. Because in the beginning of this, I was a Christian. Mm-hmm. And because I looked at the Christian faith, it didn't have any answers for me. So I started looking elsewhere, everywhere, from ancient Mesopotamia, from a Hindu faith, from the pagan faiths and stuff like that, and different faiths around the world, from ancient faiths, the Aztecs and the Mayans, the Native American faiths across the entire world. I looked everywhere for something similar. Somebody had to know something about this happening. And that's why I found some things. In the Aztec, the Mayan, even the Nordic and Haitian faiths, there were shamans that were known for binding dark entities to objects, specifically their staffs. So it's not entirely new practice, but the fact that those shamans had to spend years learning what they had to learn. Mm-hmm. I was born with it. And that's why I can't equivalent myself to anything, but the closest I can is a shaman. But a shaman who was born to do this. Mm-hmm. Wasn't learned. I didn't learn anything. other than what you can learn on the internet. But
Right.
I wasn't taught. No one raised me in the idea of it. I have no
Right.
family members who are witches or psychics or mediums. There's no one in my bloodline with any abilities.
Right.
I have no one but myself, my entire family line who can do what I do. None of my siblings, my parents, no. My mom, I would say she's kind of a medium, a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, she probably denies it to herself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's over the time of doing this. I have gained or earned 6 different names, titles, you could say. The first was the Shadow Walker, which is the handle I use for most time.
Okay. Yeah.
That was given to me by another psychic medium that I met, and I didn't meet her in Australia, but I talked to her, via Zoom through Australia. There was a paranormal investigator, which is also a medium in Australia, who I talked to, and this was like the first year of this ability. I wanted to talk to anyone who might know anything about this. I explained it to her after the show. She said, "You know what? That sounds a lot like my friend Jane. Let me go get her." So she went downstairs, brought her friend up. I explained my story at the time to her, and she was like, "Oh, I know what that is. It's something similar to what I was doing, but not to that extent." I go, "What are you talking about?" She says she's able to pull positive energy in and transfer to the other side, but she only ever does anything with light energy. She never handles anything dark. But she says she has a lot of concentration, but also she's a psychic medium. And she went to her shaman to find out what this is, what this ability is. And her shaman told her, "Oh, you're a psychopomp or you're a shadow walker." Hence the name stuck, because but in truth, Megan is more the psychopomp than I am. She crosses over spirits all the time. But that was like the first of my 6 names. The second was a somewhat of a joke in a sense, but I kind of earned it after a couple of times. When I was looking at different faiths and stuff like that, I found something interesting about the Great Spirit in the Sky, or the Great Mystery. It's a Native American faith, and they talked about an entity called the Earth Maker. And I remember I was discussing this with Mike, my mentor at the time, and he laughed. He goes, "Well, if he's Earth Maker, wouldn't that make you the Earth Shaker?" I go, "What do you mean?" He says, "Every time you pull, mind you, if I put my hand to the earth, I can feel all negative energy around, say, 100-yard radius from where I'm putting my hand. And when I pull, like a giant, net, catching everything at once, according to him, Mike, he feels the ground vibrate from shaking the earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's how that name became, Earth Shaker. The next was a name that I got from one of my first oppression cases I ever did. Now, like I said, in the early days, or like this is maybe 3 years ago now. Yeah. Me and my wife were looking at different faiths to look at in different things like that. And we kind of landed the Nordic faith, specifically with the old gods, with Odin, Freya, Frigg, Tyr. And this is our first oppression case we ever were doing. And so we decided, or she said, "Well, if we're going into battle, you think it's probably a good idea if we make an offering to Odin?" And you go, "All right." So I did something simple. I took some stones and a wooden wolf figurine and some herbs, and I buried it in the ground. And I simply just said, standing over it, "All Father, protect me in battle." And I heard clearly as I'm speaking to you, Dranger. I looked around, like, what the hell? Did someone just like, I hear something? That's the first time I ever heard anything that clear before. It's standing in one place. And I thought maybe someone's in the backyard messing with me, but no one was there. So I looked that word up. Dranger. What is Dranger? It apparently was a Nordic word as a form of a compliment. Other Vikingers would say it to each other as a compliment. It essentially means like badass or ultimate warrior, right? You are so-and-so's Dranger. You're his best fighter, right? Or, "Oh, dude, you're a Dranger out there. You're a badass out there, right? Yeah. So it's a compliment for the All-Father to call me Dranger is a very high compliment. Hence why my third name became Odin's Dranger.
Okay.
So, yeah. The fourth name is what I come with the best to describe me, a shaman. But the shamans that were known to do the binding of evil entities and stuff like that were shamans known for war. They went into battle. Okay. So fourth name became War Shaman. So I became the War Shaman.
Yeah.
Fifth name is what they call me, what dark entities call me, what demons call me. They don't call me Isaac. They don't call me Shadow Walker, right? Okay. They call me a lot of bad names. But what they call me is Order Keeper.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they call me, Order Keeper. They yell at me. They ask me about it, like, say, "What do you want, Order Keeper?" and stuff like that. from the small conversations I've had with them.
Mhm.
The sixth name is the most important name to any of these because it's the strongest clue to my story. And the sixth name I was given to, and how the story goes, because I had to have hernia surgery over my belly button. And Mike, my mentor, he had many surgeries over his time, mainly because he had a lot of stomach cancer problems and stuff like that. Granted, he's in remission, he's fine.
Good.
But he told me under anesthesia, if you meditate, you can go anywhere. So I was like, oh, let me go when I go under, use the best chance to use it, see where I can go. But the night before my surgery, we get visited at our home by the spirit of my grandfather, but not my grandfather in this lifetime, my grandfather from when I was part of the Cheyenne tribe in the 1700s.
Interesting.
So he came to visit me here and told Megan to contact him when I go under. So I was like, all right. So with that thought in mind, and by the way, I don't know if you ever had surgery before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I've never experienced falling asleep and waking up in the same second and hours have passed.
Yeah. It's wild. It's a wild concept.
Look around. But the 6 hours I was under, I only remember a small part of the conversation I had with him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in front of a cave and sitting on natural outcropping of like stone. And there was a fire pit between us, and the fire was blue. And I was looking at him, and he looked like typical indigenous man of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And all I remember him saying to me, he pointed to me, he said, "You are Ashwakanatunka, the Reaper of Souls.
Mm-hmm.
You are Ashwakanatunka." That's all I remember. The whole entire time I was on there. But granted, it might have been more of a conversation, but I don't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember waking up from it, and I looking at Megan because she was right there. I said, "I know my name is Ashwakanatunka." She's like, "Shut, nurses around." Yeah. But yeah, and what's strange about that name,
mm-hmm.
other than the fact that I couldn't find anything on it, is that the indigenous spirits that are here, where I live on East Coast, North Carolina, where I investigate in the Croatoan National Forest, they call me that over the spirit box. I hear that Ashwakanatunka come over the spirit box. I don't tell them prior. They call me that. This is supposed to be a Cheyenne legend amongst the Cheyenne tribe, which is a Great Plains native tribe. Mm-hmm. But indigenous spirits here on the East Coast now. And we look at the indigenous people who've lived here on the East Coast with the Algonquin and the Iroquois people around here anyway. So they know the name Ashwakanatunka. Now, I have friends who are investigators in Vancouver, Canada, and they investigated a Native American gravesite. Granted, it's not like a burial ground. It's where Native Americans were buried in a graveyard specifically only for Native Americans. And he was there investigating, and he asked, "Hey, I have a friend in the States who has a name. I want to know if you guys know it." And he said, "Do you guys know the name Ashwakanatunka?" And he heard clearly over the spirit box, yes, he is king." That was it. So indigenous spirits know the name on both sides of our continent, and this is supposed to be a central Great Plains Native American legend. Yeah. Therefore, there is more mystery around that name than I even know. And believe it, I tried contacting indigenous tribes, indigenous people, historians, anybody, but I'm always met with silence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah. And no other time in like meditations or anything like that have you been able to speak with the same person or have any interactions with that same spirit who said the name to you in the first place?
A couple of times. Once we were talking, and I think if I had a seventh name or something like that, but he called me the Great Wolf.
Okay.
Yeah. He's besides Ashwakanatunka, he said another name I had, or who I was to him at the time. I guess who my name was in indigenous times with the Cheyenne meant the Great Wolf or something like that. That's what he knew me as. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Wow. And do you feel like at any point, like looking back now in your childhood, was there anything weird, anything that now you're putting together saying, well, maybe I've had this, if you've had it all along, were there any situations where you think it could have been presenting itself or trying to at least before it actually did, or was it just sort of later on, maybe you were more interested in it, more researching it, and so you kind of opened yourself up to allowing that to show a little bit more?
I was always a fan of superheroes when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Big fan of comic books and stuff like that.
Sure.
So the idea of being a superhero was always there, something that was always super cool and wanted. And I was, of course, surrounded by the paranormal my entire life. But this never was a thing. This never was, I never wanted to be, I guess this, but I never wanted to be a psychic or medium.
Mm-hmm.
I had my wife who was very, very good. So why did I need to get it? I was content with being a good investigator, and when I always have the gift of gab and a good talker and entertainer and that level too. Right. So I thought, hey, let's just focus on that. Then this was, dropped in my lap. And why I waited till I was 33 to do it, I don't know. That's maybe it was necessary. Maybe the universe decided to, hey, we need to hit now. We need to activate now. Mm-hmm. And that's when it happened. And I taken to it like a fish to water. And that's what is what most people I talk to just find amazing, because most people, if they were given this kind of ability, they would freak out. They would second guess themselves. They have lack of confidence. And the thing is, I cannot have a lack of confidence. I have to believe, because the things I've seen and things I've come across, I know there's a difference. Most people rule their life by faith. I know this stuff exists. I know it does. And that's the difference. And because I know I have to do something, I can't sit on the sideline now. Not after what I can do. Yeah, it would feel selfish to do so. And that's why I've helped out 41 families, 41 individuals over my time of doing this. And that's why I continue to want to do that. I have a hero's complex, or I always say that, but in truth, I have to be the good guy. I hate injustice. I hate bullies. I've always had to be the hero, the good guy. It's just who I always was, would kind of fit in ties now with what I'm doing. And the thing is, I've had several past life regressions done as well to figure out, was there a time that I did this before? Maybe it's passed down my bloodline, which my race is identified as Hispanic, but my father's from Mexico. My mother is Hispanic as well. And that would make me more Aztec or Mayan, depending on the area where my family originates from. Sure. So there's something to that. Yeah. But also found out when I was 30 that my great-grandfather was a Choctaw indigenous native person. So I'm like, well, there's that there. Granted, probably like 10% at this point. But I was like, so I have indigenous blood heavily. But then again, all Hispanics are indigenous because we are all natives to whatever land we were. We're from the Spanish game and ruined everything. Yeah. I've always became a fan of history, so I learned everything. Yeah. But I thought maybe that was a tie. But then learning my past lives, where I was and what I've been doing, no, it's little to do with the vessel, more to do with the soul, in a sense. Because according to 2 different past life regressioners, my soul is ancient, not old, ancient. According to them, I have been here since ancient Mesopotamia, if not before. I have been here a very, very long time, repeating over and over again. And they said there's no long time lapse between lives. It's like a decade. I come back and I come back and I come back and I come back and I come back. And she said, what I found was interesting is that most people who live past lives choose different kinds of career paths or different kinds of lives, different kind of genders. They keep switching. I have been a fighter, a warrior, a soldier, an assassin, a bounty hunter. Basically, I have been in war and conflict every single life I've ever lived. I have never had one life of, hey, I feel like being a sailor this time or a teacher. No. War, combat, conflict. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And this life is no different. It's just another kind of war. Yeah. And I have a different kind of weapon to fight it. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about one of your more extreme cases?
The most impactful.
Yeah.
And also gave me the most confidence to continue this. It was a woman named Dow, and she had a son who was 12 at the time, 2 years ago, who was being oppressed, heavily oppressed by the spirit of a witch who had 3 demons in her stead. So it was 4 entities I was taking care of. And it was so bad that her son was unable to walk. He drug himself across the floor. He was in so much pain. He couldn't sleep. He was sleep deprived. He was angry. He was lashing out. Um, Her husband literally wanted to put his son in an insane asylum for the fact that it came out of nowhere. He's acting like this. She had a shaman come in, try to do some stuff. Didn't work. It just made it worse. She asked the paranormal team to come in, but before they could even get started, they weren't able to do anything because she shoot him away. And that paranormal team was the paranormal team that I'm friends with now.
Okay.
Guy, also named Mike. That's what I learned in this time doing this. There's no paranormal team complete without a Mike. There always has to be a Mike on a paranormal team. So, my friend Mike in Canada, his paranormal team, Unknown Paranormal, shout out to him.
Mm-hmm.
I became friends because I helped him out with a case with his family. It's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since that case, we became really close, almost like brothers now.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me about the story about this woman. And I told him, reach out to her again, right? But tell her about me and explain myself to her, how I helped you out, and see how I could help her out. So he did some convincing, and she took a FaceTime call with me and him. I think it was an Instagram call. And I told her, you know what? I explained my stuff. I said, like, can you do a favor? I know you're sitting outside your house. Can you point your camera towards your house? So she pointed the camera toward her house. I reached through, I pulled the closest thing, put it in the ring. I saw what it looked like, and how I described what it looked like to her. She gasped. She said, "This is exactly what my son describes." So I was like, okay. Then after that, she believed. So she literally took me, tour the house, going through, seeing her point of view. She basically had a camera point of POV. And I pulled this, I pulled this, I pulled this. And while I was pulling, the spirit of the witch pushed down her son and attacking him. He fell down, he started crying and stuff like that. And then when she pointed the camera towards him, I didn't see, but I felt the witch in that direction. I pulled her, put her in the ring. And I was ended up helping her close a portal in her backyard because Megan remote viewed into their home, telling me where everything is, and said there was a portal in the backyard. So I closed that portal. When I interrogated the witch inside the ring and asked her why she was after this boy, her reply was, it was just for fun. I made her suffer for that, but for some point. Another reason they were after him is because of her son's ability. Okay. Will be a very talented psychic medium, but his main extra gift, you would say, he seems able to manifest whatever he wants into fruition, into reality. He has a very strong ability to do that. Therefore, I guess in their minds, the dark entities, is that if they can mold him or possess him, they can use his ability to create more darkness in the world. At least that was my assumption. But literally, within a day of me helping this kid, clearing his mind force out, because I have to do that after every oppression case, because I find that demons leave a piece of themselves in some of the mind force after an oppression case, because it's almost like a call sign, or at least a way to find their way back to that person, or like marking their territory. I haven't figured out the reason behind it, but there's always a piece of themselves left in that mind force. Doing all that for him. She said literally the next day, it was like night and day, like it never happened. Wow. He improved. He hadn't had nightmares anymore. He got better. He got better. And literally, this is 2 years ago, every single month, she sends us a message thanking us. Aww. Every single month. She's like my daily reminder that, hey, it's all for something, right? Yeah. And he actually came on the podcast. There's actually an episode on In the Shadows called Dowell's Story, where you get to hear from her perspective of how everything was. And even after hearing her story, she told us, I feel like there's more she's not telling us. I think it was a lot worse than what she told us. Sure. But from the most part, she is beyond grateful for what we did for her family, how we helped her out. Wow. Literally saved her marriage, as she said a couple of times in the episode. Yeah. Because it got very dark for her and her family. But yeah, that was probably the most profound case I did. Dangerous. I haven't really found anything dangerous. I've come across some high-ranking demons, but they just put up more of a fight and say something at lower levels or regular dark humans. But yeah, that was probably my most profound case I've ever done. Nice. Any cases that have been particularly like frustrating? So you said some put up more of a fight. Does that make it more just like frustrating in general?
does it take longer, or how does that work?
I would say take longer. My record time is 30 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes from clearing out a house, clearing out a mind forest, and you're set and going like it never happened. No one in the world can promise such a thing. Other people take weeks, months, even years to get rid of something out of someone's home, and I do it in 30 minutes. It's faster than the pizza gets delivered. Yeah, I made that joke one time. Frustrating wise, no. What I've learned is that my ability seems to evolve every single time I'm met with a challenge.
Okay.
The first one was the first high-ranking demon I ever came across, helping a listener of the show with her dad. And she walked me around her dad's house, and then I found it in the garage. When I reached out and grabbed it with my tendrils and started pulling it, it grabbed one of the tendrils and started pulling it off itself. And I was like, oh, holy crap, right? I've never seen one do that before.
Right.
And that's when my tendrils electrified. In the effort of me pulling it, they electrified and became basically like a taser. And zapped them with enough electricity, I assume, to light up a city.
Right.
And it weakened it enough that I could pull it through, of course, throw it in the rain. And I was like, holy crap. So my ability evolved from that and keeps doing every time I met with a challenge. But the one and only time anything's ever gotten me or gotten close enough to touch me because I wasn't paying much attention. We were investigating the military base because we live right next to a military base.
Okay.
Of course, no one gets on there, but we had fans of the show invite us to go investigate the base. So we did. And we were investigating around the barracks. And there was a high-ranking demon in the area that we were trying to get. And the guy with me, the Marine, crawled down this little slope, not even a very steep slope of like rocks. And he was going into the wooded area. I was following him down. And I was kind of worried about this branch that was sticking out. It had a bunch of porky tines that might rip my jacket. So I tried to maneuver my way around. And I thought, if I step off here, my foot's going to go right into that little puddle. And then my foot's going to get wet. And I was like, I try to get around, like, oh, there goes my foot to the puddle. But as my foot was going to the puddle, I fell forward like somebody pushed me. And I fell forward, catching myself on a tree and tearing my tricep in my right arm.
Oh,
yeah.
That's not good.
Both slightly tearing. It wasn't fully torn off. I didn't need surgery.
Yeah.
The right arm is the weapon. And after I was healed, I think about 2.5 weeks later, I went back there and wasn't very kind to that demon. Not in the least bit. But that was the only time everything's ever got that close. And because of that, I've learned to protect myself better, my physical body more so. So did Megan, not to allow anything that close ever again. But we always learn from our mistakes, whether, at time comes. But yeah, so far, no, nothing's ever gotten that close. Nothing ever does get that close. My feeling range is about 50 yards from where I'm standing, if not further. I can reach out pretty far if something's that far away, but if something's running away, I can't, lasso it or something. But but yeah, it's about the distance. And then that's, like I said, that was probably the most frustrating of anything.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question, is how you guys go about protecting yourself and preserving your own energy, keeping things out of your own home. Do you guys have like a specific process that you use for that, or?
Well, as the entities call me Order Keeper, they call Megan the Witch. That's what they call her. They consistently call her that. And I would say Megan does practice some kind of witch. She says she would, or she doesn't, but she kind of does and doesn't at the same time. She mostly uses protection spells, basically. We buried 4 stones in the corners of our home in the ground to create some kind of a shield to protect us. It did all right. But then as Megan's ability evolved, she was able to create a shield around our home. If you imagine a giant dome, impenetrable by any dark entity whatsoever. And they bang on it like someone banging on bulletproof glass. When she learned how to do that, we haven't had one thing enter this home ever. And that's about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years now, that she learned how to do that.
But prior to that, had you experienced stuff in your own home?
Every day.
Every
day. Megan will wake me up in the middle of the night. I was like, somebody's over there. I had to reach out half awake, pull something, and then throw it in the ring and go back to sleep. Yeah, but it was like every single day somebody was coming to this pig in a fight. And I remember I made a joke to her. I said, "He's like, you think hell would learn a lesson? Stop sending their kind here because they're not gonna have anything left." They're not coming back to report. You think you would learn the lesson, but no. Anyway, um, but after she had to ship the shield every day to protect us. But the one that I always give to everyone: when you go into dangerous situations, have some form of protection. Not everyone has what I can do or what Megan does, so you have to have something to protect yourself with. And I never gave too much faith into stones before I was an investigator, but after I became an investigator, oh yeah, they are legit because one of the teams I joined at the beginning had a member who made everyone bracelets out of like stones, crystals, amethyst, tourmaline, all different kinds of stones. And she gave me one to wear for that night we first investigated together. And after the night was over, me pulling here and there, I checked the bracelet and there was cracks and some of the crystals were broken in half, pieces missing. I didn't hit anything while we're out there. Where did those pieces go? So they're like, oh, okay, the energy, it's actually doing what it is. So I always advise everyone to at least have some kind of protection stone on them, if anything, especially tourmaline. Tourmaline seems the best at warding off evil. That or some kind of symbol, something you would wear to protect yourself with. I use Nordic runes. They seem to work for us to protect us and stuff like that. Granted, we don't really need much protecting, but the Algus rune, which looks like a Y with a line in the middle, that has always become my signature because I've used it so much. Often when someone asks me if I can put some protection in their mind force after clearing it out, I like to burn that rune into the ground of their said mind force as a layer of protection, because the Algus rune was made to ward off evil.
Okay.
So that's what I tend to use and stuff like that. But I tell anyone, whatever works for you, spiritually, is a sense of protection.
Right.
Now, another question might be in the back of your head, but you probably don't feel right about asking, but I don't feel bad about answering. And most people ask this of me too. I say, if you believe all this stuff exists, if you talk to demons, you've encountered them and stuff like that, where does your faith lie?
Sure. Yeah.
And I say I'm a spiritualist, but that's kind of a cop-out. But in truth, I believe, because when I said I was an ex-Christian, people think, oh, so you don't believe in God anymore. No. On the contrary, I believe he exists. I believe Yahweh exists, Yahshua, the entire angel, pantheon and stuff like that. I didn't choose to follow. And in truth, I believe every single God that's ever been worshipped or believed in exists, all of them. Well, one, because I've heard the voice of another, and just from the histories I've learned. So this is where I guess my idea of where my faith lies is in everything. But in truth, I worship no God. I don't do any kind of practice. I don't do any kind of worship. I don't do any kind of prayers. But I do believe they all exist, and I do believe they're necessary. But for some reason, the Nordic gods have our back. So that's why we use Nordic runes, and that's why we say we kind of stay in the camp of the Nordic faith. And that's why I wear a vault nut.
Okay.
Which stands for high, highest, and most high, Odin and his brothers. But that answers that question if you were thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid question. So because of you and your wife, do you notice anything in your son? Do you feel like he's had any kind of personal capabilities that might be coming about, or do you guys try? Yeah. Cool.
He is 8 as of this month. He's just turned it. And at age 3 years old, I saw him push back a demon. Okay. Keep a demon from running. His ability, as I think we think, well, Brandon, we know he's going to be a good psychic medium. He's already going to have that. But another gift combined me and my wife together, he uses his hands like I do, but he projects positive energy out of both, almost like pushing positive energy out of his hands. And when I saw him as a little toddler in his diaper, standing in their den down here, going, no, 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 with his hands up. And whatever he was looking at was in the corner. And I felt around my right hand, and it couldn't move. It tried to move right and move left, but it couldn't get around it. And I grabbed it and I pulled it. And he turned around, not because he knew I was there, but because he was following it, where it was going. And we even ask him now, when I pull something, Megan asks him, do you see what Daddy's doing? And he goes, yeah, taking the monsters. Yeah. So he can see, right? He can see what we're doing. He sees everything. He sees the energies around him.
Mm-hmm.
We often catch them talking to somebody we know isn't physically there, but Megan does allow positive spirits and humans to come into the house. They have free access to the shield. It just repels negative entities.
Gotcha.
So we do get visitors a lot coming to just talk to Megan, family members who passed away who come and just, just hang her out for a little bit, or because an entity is curious of why that space in the higher dimensional plane does not exist. Because besides the shield protecting us, she created a Faraday box. Okay. We are technically invisible. No one can see. If you're a ghost, you can't see us. All you do see is a blank space.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why often, after she learned to do that, we often don't get a lot of visitors until somebody comes thinking, oh, there's nothing there. That might be them.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And they go bang on the shield. They run right into it. But yeah, he's already showing signs, and it's already told to us by different psychic mediums that we know. Megan has seen it, and of course, Mike, my mentor, saw it as well. People often wonder, what happens to me after I die? I put all this evil in this ring. What's going to happen to it after I'm gone?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is going to happen to it?
My children will take it.
Okay.
Specifically, my daughter, who's not even born yet. But it was already told to us that she will take my place.
Okay.
She will be the next Shadow Walker.
Interesting.
And she will be stronger than me. Which, if you make someone like me stronger, you make it a woman.
Right.
Because, as we know, women are very more powerful psychic mediums than men are. Whether it's their connection to how life flows through them, or because they have a stronger connection to their emotions, whatever the reason. Or maybe because the first human in existence was a woman. Whatever the reason behind it is, just, I know the next level of Shadow Walkers will be women. Because freakier thing. In a conversation with my spirit guides, they told me, your next vessel, my next life, will be I'll be housing the vessel of my great granddaughter. Yeah. I will follow the bloodline all the way down to her in 100 years from now.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's strange is that I was listening to a song on I created a lot of playlists because I'm a big fan of music.
Yeah.
But I was listening to my favorite song playlist. There's a specific song I was listening to on it while I was laying in bed and kind of meditating at the same time. And I just learned about retro causality, which is a quantum theory's prediction that the future can influence the past, which I know is a weird concept to think about. But it's a theory in quantum mechanics that I heard about, and I like learning about quantum theory, quantum mechanics, and stuff like that, as much as I could learn without going to college for it. But when I heard about them explaining retro causality, I was like, that's interesting. And listening to that song, meditating, looking through my third eye, I was playing around with energy, and I saw my hand, but it wasn't my hand. The hand that I saw was smaller and more feminine, right? Same color pattern. And then I realized where I was. I was in my great-granddaughter's body. I was seeing through her. We were connecting through time and space over 100 years, because she was in the same exact place, doing the same exact thing at the same exact time, listening to the same exact song at the same moment. 100 years in separation. Now, like I said, electricity was only the element that's connected to my tendrils, but I found out that if I pulled the elemental energy off a dark entity, I could absorb it into my tendrils, therefore gaining fire, water, wind, earth, and electricity as each connected to my tendrils. And I can use that to help me with taking out entities. Anyway, so the elements of the earth, I'm technically controlling in my hand with my connect to my tendrils. What I saw in her hands when I did the same thing was cosmic energy. Like I was looking at the energy that makes space.
Interesting. Okay.
So that freaked me out. I told Megan, much like, what the hell? And I was thinking to myself, if I come back in 100 years and still look like that is my great granddaughter, stuff like that. The weirder part, she could be listening to this podcast in 100 years. Now, all my memories of myself are gone, right? I don't remember being me. She doesn't remember being me. She doesn't remember being her great grandfather. She has her own memories, her own tastes, but she, of course, there's information, there's stories told of me that she'll read, that she'll listen to. She'll listen to all the podcasts that I was on. She'll hear my voice. She'll hear the story. She'll even hear this. And that's really, really mind-blowing to think about, that your future self could be listening to you.
Right.
100 years from now.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. That's a wild concept.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around it, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So do you think that that was more of like a vision of what will be, or like an exist like a parallel universe kind of thing?
Well, it's likely what will be. I mean, I had episodes of this is a whole nother conversation, but
Right.
I had episodes when I was younger of like having deja vu, but having a seizure along with it.
Oh.
And after learning as I got older, when it came back to me again, those episodes, that it was a bleeding effect from other versions of myself in the multiverse.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, interesting. We're gonna have to delve into that story at some point.
Yeah, that whole situation, that was
Yeah.
strange, and I've learned through my life in retrospect, in hindsight, that I have lived a very, very strange life.
Yeah,
And disability is only one piece of it.
sure.
What I'm doing now is a small piece of it. I've had contact with aliens, which I didn't think was even possible, or
Right.
even up my alley. I've dealt with demons and spirits and stuff like that. Why are aliens talking to me? That's not what happened. I saw a gnome, right?
Hmm.
I didn't think the Fae folk would be something I'd become in contact with. Why? This is before I had my ability. I was like, I saw a gnome. I'm like,
Hmm.
all right. And then things that happened to me when I was younger. The whole episodes of those I call them dejas, deja vu seizures.
Yeah.
And that happened to me when I was younger, and I came back when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And it's just like, and of course, the ranch that I lived on, that was, littered with paranormal activity, from anywhere from ghosts to a possible rake to, I think, Bigfoot and a skinwalker. I don't know. A lot of things have happened on that ranch over the time I've been there. So, and then of course, that would happen to me, would happen to my friends when they drop me off after school or late at night after hanging out with them. Yeah. But I can say that most of my friends never came back to that ranch whatsoever.
Like, nope.
Not gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you feel is, since you've done so many cases and where there have been demonic entities within these cases, what do you feel like is the main draw for them to have been in these households, oppressing these people? What do you think is the main kind of driving force that's attracting them?
From the conversations I've had with them.
Yeah.
Gaining information, interrogating, and they don't give that information up easy.
Mhm.
But I have my ways. They are all demons, are attracted. So they're not attracted, addicted to negative emotions.
Sure.
Once they find someone who is susceptible, they attach, and then they start feeding on your negative emotions, your sorrow, your anger, your depression, your hatred. Every negative emotions you emit is like a hit from a drug, and they love it, and they feed on it, and they want more and more, and they oppress more and more. Then they make you start lashing out at your family, start making you hate all your friends, separating yourself. The more sad you are, the more depressed you are. Another hit, another hit, another hit. And then not only them, but their servants feed on it too. And it's consistently more and more and more. They love negative emotions. And humans, as we are, our emotions are our strongest thing. It's our greatest power and our greatest weakness. The fact that our emotions are so powerful that they almost emit out of ourselves. And that's what they're attracted to more than anything, is the negative emotions. And they start with oppression.
Yeah.
And the difference between oppression and possession is the start of possession. They have to break you down. They have to break your will down to make you give up. And once you give up,
and inhabit,
they take over. And then taking over is more. Megan had a perfect analogy. She said, if you can imagine your vessel as a car and your soul as a driver, a demon is now reaching into your window, trying to rip you off the steering wheel, trying to break in. Did I lose you for a second? Your face froze.
Oh, yeah.
Did I lose you?
No, I hear you.
Oh. Okay. All right. So your face froze for a second. I was like, oh, did I lose?
Like, no.
And yeah. Anyway, the demon trying to break into your car while you're driving it, that's oppression. Possession is now you're in the trunk, and now the demon is behind the wheel.
Right.
So that's the best we can summarize it in a sense. But all the oppression cases I've done, that's the main point. That's why they were there.
Right.
Because they feed off the negative emotions people give off.
Right.
And I'm not saying if you're depressed, you're going to be picked on. No, maybe your willpower is too strong for them to even attempt anything, so they don't even bother.
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's a harder chance for them to go after you. Maybe you're not even on their radar. They don't know you're there
Mm-hmm.
until you walk by them or you call them or you mess around with something you shouldn't have. And they
Mm-hmm.
see you and they go, ooh, this one, I like this one.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the most heinous things you can think of said by demons I've talked to, of why they were after certain people. And they always choose young women because women, like I said, they emit more emotion than men do. And the
Sure.
younger you are, the stronger those emotions are. It's always young people
Mm-hmm.
that get attacked the most. I'm not saying they're exclusively go after young people. I said young people are easy pickings.
More vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a stronger level of demon to go after someone who would be more of a challenge.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you feel like when you said doing things that they shouldn't, do you mean like Ouija boards, or like what is your take on that kind of thing?
Ouija boards is probably top on the list.
Yeah.
I have nothing against the Ouija board itself because it's not the Ouija board itself. It's the act of what you're doing.
Sure.
You can make a Ouija board with cardboard and just write the symbols on them. You get the same effect. It doesn't matter. It's the act of what you're doing. You're opening your door, yelling free beer, and seeing who shows up. And not everyone who shows up is going to be nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because a lot of dark entities are out there going, oh, who's going to call me now? Who's going to call me now? Ooh, there's a party going over here.
Yeah.
And of course, investigators who go to places without any protection and with any kind of level of mindset of what they're dealing with.
Right.
And also making the dumber thing, saying that if you tell an entity not to follow you home, it's not going to follow you home. No. If it wants something, it's going to follow you. It doesn't give. It doesn't care about what you tell it to do. A human entity, you might be able to give a talking to, but a demon, no. They're laughing in your face, saying, "You are just some mortal. What are you going to do to me? You think you have the power to command me away, right?" Yeah. So, hence why some investigator friends of mine have gotten into hot water, and I had to pull them out. By getting rid of stuff in their home or at investigation. Called me.
Right.
I'd be sitting there watching TV. I get a call on Instagram. I'm like, what? I answer. Like, I need your help real quick. I'm like, all right, put it on stand. All right, walk me around. I pull stuff from them. All right, have fun in your investigation. See you later. All of 15 minutes.
Yeah. Call them the demons.
Like when I deal with stuff like, oh shit, I can't deal with this. Call Isaac.
Yeah. So, yeah. Nice. Do you feel like more people are oppressed than we think?
Oppression happens more often than possession. Sure. And it takes a while to get to possession. Often before possession happens, a priest is called in, or a shaman's called in, or an investigator is called in, or a light worker, or somebody is called in to help. Excuse me. So by the chance it even gets to possession, somebody's there to help out. But oppression happens more often than people think.
Yeah.
But often before it gets to a dangerous point, things are shoved away or pushed away.
Sure.
So sometimes like a lower level demon will try something out, but their family is smart enough to pray or bring in symbols or do something to essentially push this demon away. But that's my hang up with priests, with light workers, with shamans, with investigators. They all push these things away, push them away. They punch, they knock these things down, these things get back up to go bother someone else. I hit them, they go down, they stay down. Right. Once inside the ring, they never escape ever again. They never leave. They never bother anyone ever again. I stop it in its tracks. That's why I named the ring. If you're wondering if there was a name, I'd never been asked before. It was a couple of years ago. Someone asked me, "What'd you name the ring?" I was like, I didn't think about it. After I thought about it, I decided to call it Cien de Fuego, which is Latin for no escape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fitting. Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing ever leaves that ring.
Right. Interesting. That's a crazy story.
Like I said.
Yes.
No one's ever heard anything about this. And I've talked to other psychic mediums. I've talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they're, it kind of sounds like this or it kind of sounds like that, but never 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's its own unique thing. That's great.
But yeah, now I know my purpose in life is to eradicate as much darkness as possible, as much as I can in my lifetime. And of course, teach my children to do the same after I'm gone. And when I come back again, which that's going to be really weird if I'm an old man on his deathbed and I'm looking at my granddaughter who could possibly be my mother in a next life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
Definitely. What do you feel like you want people to know about the paranormal, or what can people do? What would your advice be to general people who may not necessarily be as into it or may not have as much knowledge about it? What do you want just regular people to know about it?
It's very real.
Yeah.
As much as everyone wants to say remain ignorant to it because it's safe to think
Mm-hmm.
this stuff isn't real, this stuff can't hurt you, this stuff isn't around. It's a good mind space to be in, because that will strength will kind of keep you invisible to them until it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then until it doesn't, you're met with something that will shatter your reality beyond your comprehension and cause you to have more damage than you thought was possible by even attempting it. And you'll think yourself insane. You'll think yourself crazy. You will make every excuse in the world to rationalize what happens, what is happening to you, without just accepting the obvious, is that you have something in your home that can easily be removed by a person or someone else. And all you have to do is reach out. But the fact that you don't want to believe that this could be possible, you try to rationalize it, and you jump through more mental loops than the Olympics to, explain away what is there.
Right.
And the thing is, though, is that even believing this stuff exists, they're not all around everywhere.
Right.
Not every single location is haunted. Not every single place on this planet has ghosts. There are places that are far more concentrated. Yes. But not everyone's house is going to be haunted. Not everyone's house is going to have ghosts. Not everyone's place, not every single location, not every graveyard is going to have ghosts in it. Granted, graveyards tend to have more so than most places, but not every single one's going to have a heavy haunting. But they have to understand that stuff is real. It's out there, but there are ways to protect yourself from it. And this is why I become necessary, because I feel like the more people are accepting, which a lot more people are accepting of the paranormal now more than ever, it's creating more of awareness. And because it's more aware, everything else seems to become more more powerful in a sense. They always say, if you look in the darkness, darkness looks back, right? Okay, more people paying attention, giving stuff out there more ability to exist. Almost like tulpas, right? The more we believe in it, more it exists, more powerful it gets.
Right.
So I think it's another part why I was awoken, you would say. I become necessary in this world. Yeah.
And do you think so? You said you like to study like quantum physics and things like that. Do you think that because I know sometimes there has been some parallels between those kinds of theories and how it almost, like you said, kind of proves that there is existence. Is there anything in particular that you feel like if you look at this in science, then that gives you proof? Or
dimensional space.
Okay.
We gauge the idea of dimensional space going up and down. I always theorize that fourth dimension space is the dimension that ghost spirits, demons, they all live on. It's essentially our third dimensional space mixed with time. And always a spirit doesn't know when it's dead. It could have just died and it's been 100 years and they don't know. They still act like it's that time they died. They're asking questions. Am I dead? Can I cross over? Or other things like that. They're repeating their life in a sense like that. They're not intelligent to what's going on. And some people call it residual energy, which is true. And there's also intelligent spirits that are asking questions. But I always theorize that's the fourth dimensional space. Fifth dimensional space, I theorize that's where the gods are. All of them, they're in the fifth dimensional space. And the higher you go, the more strange things get. But also the opposite exists. Because Megan has meditated on it and theorized that because there's positive, there's also negative in opposite directions. So negative fourth dimensional space would be essentially where all the demons are, where negative spirits hang out. And then our dimension, third dimensional space, is kind of the center point where everything goes to it. And everything's attracted to this space because it's in the middle.
Yeah.
But also because of us. Because the energy we generate, right? But when it comes to quantum theory, it is the quantum mechanics. It's like the most scientific way to help explain some of the supernatural things that we've encountered. Like, how is things able to move without anything touching it if there's energy force? The idea that energies can't be destroyed, it always exists afterwards. And if our souls are made of energy, we just kind of, transport to one place or the other and moving sort of like that. So there is a lot of explanations and stuff like that when I'm learning when it comes to science. And that's my hope for the paranormal, is that we somehow bridge the gap between science and the paranormal and combine them together, have more scientists accepting of the paranormal, and invent technologies and ways to help study it better so we can get a better clarification of what's actually going on. Yeah.
And what do you think it's going to take to get to that point?
Scientists that are willing to accept ridiculeness and their reputation for the truth and information that most other scientists were afraid to do so.
Sure.
Or paranormal investigators who start studying into science and stuff like that to help prove these things exist through whatever experiments they can to help do so. Bridging the gap of both would be the most efficient, but either one or I think is what's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah. I think that would be best case scenario for sure. If there could be some kind of proof, some kind of tool that helps improving. Only time will tell, I guess. But that definitely would be best case scenario.
I mean, I've done things. Granted, I can't prove I know whoever's listening to this probably thinks I'm full of crap. And I said I can't prove my ability to anyone. It's not something visually I can show you.
Right.
Granted, I have really only 2 pieces of visual evidence I even have on my Instagram, the Hidden Shadows podcast and Hidden Shadows Paranormal. One is you see a video, because I wear a camera when I investigate, a body cam. So you can see my POV. And one time we were in a park around here near our home where we like to investigate, and you see my hand out and I see me reach and I say, gotcha. And I pull my hand closer to myself. When you see my arm, it has this white mist over it. When I close my fist and open it, the mist is gone. And then the other is I tried something called a triangle pull, where I focus 3 points of energy in a triangle and kind of generate a giant vortex, essentially, to pull everything in an area to one spot and grab it and pull it through. When I did that, granted, it was a stormy day. We kind of had a little bit of rain, a little bit of gust of wind here and there. But when I did that, the wind kicked up like we were in the middle of a hurricane. Like you could hear it over the camera, like blowing heavily. And then when I reached in with my right hand to grab all the dark energy, the wind shut off. Like someone flicked a switch. You hear it on the camera. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know I could do that. Both those videos are on our Instagram, so judge as you will. But
for sure,
there's only visual proof I have. And once I have some better representation of visible proof, then maybe I can help bridge the gap of science, because I can replicate in a controlled setting my ability, therefore helping them start to accept the idea of paranormal things out there. So
excellent. Very cool. Well, if people need any help, should they just reach out to your Instagram, or what's the best way to contact you?
Through the Instagram. We check it more often than anything else.
Okay.
A Hidden Shadows Podcast on Instagram, Hidden the Shaw 6 on X, Hidden Shadows Podcast 2 on TikTok, or links to all of social media. And always you can listen to it at hiddenshadowspodcast.com. But also you can email us to the website as well if you're dealing with anything. And something that I always like to stress, important.
Yeah.
I know someone's listening going, well, if I need Isaac's help, how much does he charge?
True.
I do not charge anything for my services. Not 1 penny, nothing. Never have, and I never will charge for my services and my ability. I feel it morally wrong to do so, and it's hard for me to trust those who do charge for their otherworldly abilities, whether they're legit or not, or whether there's some charlatan.
Yeah. But
I don't feel right about doing so. So I never have, and I probably most likely never will charge for my services whatsoever. And that goes from mind clearing out your home, or dealing with anything in your home whatsoever. If you're already dealing with something in your home and you do need help, easy messages to Instagram. We'll schedule a time. Like I said, 30 minutes, in and out, done, and you're fine.
Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that, because that probably does make people a little bit more skeptical, is once, well, I can do this for you for $300, for $500. That kind of raises the eyebrows a little bit. So the fact that you're doing it just out of the goodness of your heart is super, super nice, super important. And I'm glad people have an ability to contact someone who's doing that for people. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Any other advice or any last comments for viewers? Anything else you want to add? You've given us a lot.
So without going into another conversation, I could take about an hour or so. Always the same advice I always give people: question everything.
Hmm.
but always analyze everything too. Make your own assumptions. Gain the most information. If you're unsure about something, it's because you don't know everything about it. So start
Hmm.
studying on everything. That's what I did, and I started learning things across the entire histories of the world. Learning this, learning that, learning that. I have always been addicted to information and knowledge. So um, once you start learning and start figuring things out, you start looking at the world differently
Sure.
from an
Yeah.
information point. But also
Right.
led me to start having different ideas of how this ability can work and what
Right.
I can do it and how I can strengthen it, what I can do with it, all that stuff. So
Hmm.
even with that, and for those who think they're psychically inclined or with spirit, psychic mediumship abilities, everyone has potential to be psychic or medium, but not everyone was going to be good at it. I kind of equivalent it to like playing basketball. Everyone can play basketball, but some of us are not very good.
That's
Some of us are pretty good. Some of us are really good. Some of us,
right.
play in the NBA, and some of us are known throughout history as one of the greatest of all time. So that saying goes with that. And of course, some people are born with natural talent. Some people have to work at it. So, but it's not something that should be shunned. You were given, if you're a psychic or medium, you feel bad about it, don't. You were given a more powerful gift, and it's detrimental to your existence not to use it.
True. Hmm. Well, very good advice. Isaac, thank you so much for coming on, for talking to us about all this. I'm sure people are going to be, if they haven't already, they're going to be running to your podcast to listen to some of those episodes themselves. But in closing, guys, thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening. And until next time.